Hello and welcome to Magic in Mind. My name is Maggie Rose Cunningham, and today we're going to be looking at Northern tradition deities and you might say like divine beings who embody seership, who have the skills of seership. And we're going to be looking at what we can learn from them and how we can identify which ones might be useful patrons for us, depending on the type of seer that we are. So I wanted to start with a story. You might know this story, so if you do, bear with me. Just get yourself comfy and have a little bit of a listen. So this is the story of the ending of the wars between the Vanir, the gods of the earth, and the Aesir, the gods of the sky, who had been warring for eons, and eventually they create an agreement of peace, which is done through a hostage exchange. So some members of the Vanir, including Njord, Freya, Frey, trundle off to Asgard to go and make their homes there, and they become parts of the Asgardian pantheon. And Mimir and Honir go to Vanaheim as part of the exchange, and they're considered to be, treasured. These are high status individuals who have been exchanged in order to forge this peace between these two realms. And so it is odd, let's say, that Mimir doesn't last very long, let's say. He ends up being beheaded by the Vanir in an act that seems strange on a number of fronts. It seems strange that they sort of decided that's what we're going to do with him immediately. It seems strange that deities who are known for fertility and abundance, that would be the way that they would seek to, potentially to break this peace treaty. So let me tell you a little bit more about Honir and Mimir. So Mimir's name is thought to meant to think, or to recall, or to reflect, or to worry over. He's a god of knowledge. He's known as this huge repository of knowledge and wisdom. So he's a valuable commodity. So when he goes to the Vanir. Honir, we know from one other legend. So as well as being part of this hostage exchange, he is said to be one of the deities who worked with Odin to create the first man and the first woman. And it's said that he gifts them the gift of sort of thinking or rational consciousness. So he is a god of thought. And when he arrives in Vanaheim, he's said to be very fair of countenance, and the Vanir decide that he will make an excellent chief. So they set him up as a leader. And then they get really annoyed when he can provide advice and guidance and do all of the things that you would expect of him, unless Mimir is absent. And when Mimir is absent, he's just like this. Ask Mimir. And he can't provide that leadership. So this is why we think, so why is it that they behead Mimir? Surely they should behead Honir if he's the one who, when Mimir's not there, he's not living up to the deal of what they thought. He's not being the leader and the chief. So we're going to leave Mimir and Honir for a moment, and we're going to come back to them. And I wanted to bring in perhaps some more well-known representatives of seership within the Northern tradition. So for me, one of the sort of obvious ones is Odin. And one of the things that I find really interesting about Odin is that he is said to be a god of deep wisdom, huge wisdom and knowing. He will go anywhere, do pretty much anything in order to gather that wisdom. And what's interesting about Odin is that he doesn't pretend or assume to have all of that knowledge himself. He doesn't sort of sit there as a sort of seer and go, I'm connecting in with the spirits, I'm connecting with them, and now I know what's, now I pronounce my judgment. He has a large number of beings that he goes to consult with. So he visits the goddess Saga every day, it's said, and they will sit and they will chat. Now, Saga is known as a seeress. She is a goddess of poetry. She is a goddess of history. So she's a goddess of the word, the sort of spoken word. And what I'd like you to start to feel into here is the importance of these exchanges that Odin participates in. So he goes to see Saga, And I see her as being, yes, she's a seeress, but I see her as being a personification of seership as represented by the sage. She is also she has great knowledge, and the realm of story and the realm of the voice is hers. So if you're somebody who, can receive incredible insight from, you might listen to poetry or read a book or be watching this as I'm talking to you, that stories evoke for you a knowing, you're like, oh, suddenly at some point you reach that insight because you've had an inspiration. One of my business mentors she'll read us a poem at the beginning of each week, and then we'll see, what does this poem tell me? And this is important because to me, this is a really important aspect of Northern tradition seership. And what I believe the gods are trying to teach us through their stories is that seership happens in different ways. So this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing Odin at the table with Saga, and they're drinking. So they're having this sort of sacred nourishment. And Saga is speaking to Odin and relating to him, perhaps the poems or the histories that have come to her from all of the different worlds, and she's recording them in her library. And as she speaks, he gets this visceral feeling in his body of, that's the important bit. That's the bit that I came here to hear. That's the piece of wisdom that I needed. So she is doing this offering from the realm of the sage to Odin, and he is then taking that in. It's literally like drinking while he does this. And then he finds the piece of wisdom that he wants. That's my take from this. Now, Odin, it's useful to bear in mind, Odin is said to not eat. He's said to only drink. He's very, very particular, let's say, about the food, the nourishment that enters his body. And we're going to come back to this. This is important. So that, again, that's something just to sort of tag in your mind. And also maybe to bear in mind that when you do seership work, you might have been trained in a tradition that says, oh, you should eat very little before you do seership, or you should eat certain foods before you do seership. There is a very strong connection, I believe, between our ability to engage in seership, to have that sort of deep knowing of, yes, that's the thing. No, that's the one. This is the way we should go. This is the decision that needs to be made. And how we nourish our bodies. If you've just had, I don't know, big old fish and chips and a ice cream or whatever it is, you're not in the mood for seership by the time you get to the end. You're in the mood to have a sleep, aren't you? Which isn't conducive to seership. So this idea of being nourished is important for Odin's form of seership, but I also think for seership in general. So he goes to see Saga. He also goes to see the Nornir. And he's not the only one. So all of the gods will go and they'll go to Urthasbrunn, and they will consult with the Nornir, with fate itself, and take from that, okay, so these are the actions that we need to take during the course of the day. He also goes, we know, to a vulva, to a dead, in this instance, seeress, and he asks her questions. He wants to know what the future is, and so he asks her these questions, and she speaks to him, of things that have happened in the past, and then she speaks to him of Ragnarok, of the final battle, and what will happen to him in the future. And again, to me, it's their interaction that's important. Odin chooses to believe what she tells him, and to me, that's the key piece here. Is, in this case, I would see the vulva in many ways as being a mystic. She's a mystic because she's been summoned from one realm into another. She's dead, but she's called forth by Odin. So she's sort of separating part of her consciousness to go to him. And then she travels into the past, and then she takes this journey into the future, and she shares that with him. But Odin is performing the act of the seer in deciding what it is that he wants to take from that. Namely, he then undertakes a number of different things that he's going to do in order to, let's say, defer the Ragnarok, and to sort of defy it for as long as possible. And this is, I think, important to recognize, is that we can think about seership as being a reading of fate, as a fatalistic thing. Oh, this is going to happen and there's nothing I can do about it. Does Odin do that? No. This is written, but that doesn't mean we can't modify it slightly or defer this for a while. I've got things that need to get done, he's going. His seer is saying, okay, so that's the version. why else? Why is he going to the Nornir? In order to take action. Otherwise he would be pointless. We could just, the Nornir would be like on the throne, wouldn't they? Sort of ruling all of the things. But no, it's Odin. So they are a very important source of information for him. But it doesn't mean that, it means that there are certain things that are fixed, but we can work with them. Now, there's another deity who does this, who listens, and in this case isn't as successful, but she does her absolute best. And this is Frigg. And again, when we hear about Frigg and the particular prophecy that she works with, we often think, oh, she is the one who had who made this prophecy, but this is not actually true. So what happens is that her son Balder has a dream, and he dreams of his own death. And Frigg goes out and she does the magics, let's say, in order to try and prevent that death. And she's almost successful. She's not successful because of the work of Loki, who sort of says this needs to happen, make it happen. But she's like, there are lots of things that I can do to prevent this fate from happening. And so what I see here happening again is the interaction. Balder has a dream. No one says whether Balder is like, my dream is true. He doesn't go off trying to sort of stop this from happening. He just says, he might just have gone, I had a bad dream, Mum. And Frigg activates her seer, and it is her seer that says to her, that's a prophecy. That's not some, random dream that he's had that is just about, his own worries that he's not going to fulfill the expectations of his parents and he's going to die instead. No, she says, this is a prophecy. That's her seer. For me, this is where the seer lives inside. The seer lives in us and says, that's true. It's the fluttering of the heart or the gripping of the belly or the tingling on the back of the neck. No, this is our place of knowing. Lots of things I'm not going to talk about today necessarily, but around the way that Northern Tradition soul law works with different parts of the soul being able to detach and then come back. But then it's the body, it's our bodies that sense those. It's the inner seer that senses those and allows us to interact with them. So Frigg performs her own act of seership, but it's actually Balder's dream. So again, for me, I think about the mystic self. He goes off on a voyage into the dream world and he brings this back, but he needs somebody else to decide what it means or to act on it, to say, yes, I believe that it's true in some way. Now, we've mentioned Mimir already. So after he's beheaded, Mimir's head is sent back to Odin. And it's said that Odin is in such grief that he carries Mimir's head around with him in order to receive the wisdom of Mimir. And you could see this as being Mimir, as being like the embodiment of the sage again here. This huge repository of wisdom that he offers. And Odin is then relying on that wisdom. He's relying on that wisdom to guide him. And eventually he takes the head down and it's placed at Mimir's Brunn, the well of Mimir. And it's then a place that we can go and we can drink, notice the drinking, from the waters in order to receive great wisdom. And Odin will travel regularly, again, to receive that wisdom from Mimir. So I want to take you back to that story of Honir and Mimir and propose a possible solution, a possible reason as to why it was that Mimir was beheaded. And it's just an interpretation, Use your seer to decide whether it feels true to you or not. Mimir and Honir arrive, and I don't think that the Vanir are stupid, I think that they are powerful, powerful deities with wisdom of their own. And they recognize quite quickly that Honir and Mimir aren't like, let's say, the Seith Kona of the Northern European times, who travels around and she's got all of her accoutrements with her. And she comes and she performs on the high seat and she sort of gives the information alone. No, they're a double act. No, just like Balder and Frigg are a double act, or Odin and Saga, or Odin and Mimir, or Odin and Frigg as well. They share the throne. That there is a collaborative energy that is allowing Mimir as the repository of wisdom, the repository of sage wisdom, to offer that sage wisdom to Honia, who is the leader. He's been designated as the leader. And to me, seers are born leaders. No, because they are the ones who take all of the information, all of the, we could do this, we could do that, this, what about this, what about that? I can see this unfolding, that's unfolding, and they say that way. This is what my gut tells me. This is what my instincts tell me. This is what my intuition tells me. They are the centers of our decision making. And so Honia is absolutely necessary in order to decide which parts of Mimir's wisdom are required in the moment and to take decisions. And we can often see this. We can see that sort of archetypal figure of the sovereign, of the king and the sovereign, and of the advisor. And we often think about the advisor as being, oh, they're the seer. But to me, I think it's more complex than that. I think that the different parts of our magical selves are always interacting with each other. And we might, as seers, you know, we've got access to all of the different parts of the magical self. So I might go off and I might do a journey for myself, and then I might interpret it with my seer and decide, what does this mean? But what the Northern legends suggest to me is that they recognize that collaboration is more powerful. And you might find that, you know, easier to have somebody else do a reading for you than for you to do it yourself. And one of the reasons for that might be that they then become your source of inspiration, you know, offering you insights into what's happening to you, suggesting ways forward to you. And that allows you to not have to do the job of the sage or the mystic or the healer who's saying, like, what's wrong in the world? I can feel that this is wrong and this is wrong and that's wrong. You just get to be in your seer and say, from all of those pieces of information that are coming in, this is the one I'm going to choose. That's the one that feels right to me. That's the one that resonates in my heart. And I think this is incredibly important for us in terms of taking back our power in working with like readings, oracular readings of any description, where what we seem to have forgotten in the Western world is we seem to think that people who go and have readings done are giving up their autonomy and their independence to somebody else. Simply isn't true. Now, if we are working as I believe we should be, and as I believe the Northern tradition tales teach us, we are opening ourselves up to a very wide and trusted sources of information. And Mimir is trusted, Saga is trusted, the Nornir are trusted. They are repositories of wisdom. We're not going and asking any old Tom, Dick, and Harry, you know. And then we are working with our seer and developing our seer self in order to say, what am I going to choose from that? My choice. They're not doing the choosing for me. Right? So when you go and have a reading done with somebody else, it's almost like you're the seer and they are the mystic or the healer or the sage, offering that out into the world. Now, I wanted to touch a little bit on the magician, because you might sort of say, well, where does the doing self work? But obviously the world is happening around us all of the time, and we are seeing people in action and going, oh yeah, I absolutely approve of that and I want to get behind that person, or no, that is wrong. No, though their magician activates our seer in that moment, because what they are doing tells us about what we believe or what we think. But there is also, I wanted to bring in a magician that I think is maybe a little bit underrated in the Northern tradition. You'll remember that I said that Loki takes a role in ensuring that the prophecy about Balder happens, you know, that it comes to pass. So to me, Loki is a magician seer, because he says, I hear that fate. I hear that this is this fate. And Frigg has decided that she's going to sort of activate her own magician by saying, no, I don't agree with that. I'm going to go off and I'm going to exact oaths from everyone that they won't harm Balder. And Loki says, I'm going to use my magic to keep us on the road that my seer tells me is the right one. You know, that fate has decreed this, and by defying fate, you know, bad things might happen. So he activates the magician. But he does this quite a lot of the time as well. If you think about him as being, he is a king of insults, you know. So the way that he's going to find out the truth is he's going to throw as much dirt as he possibly can at it until something sticks. He's a doer, you know. So he says, you know, how am I going to find this out? Doesn't sort of go and do an Odin and say, right, I'm going to go and speak to Mimir, or I'll go and consult with Evolve or whatever it is. He goes, no, you know, I'm just going to use my mouth and say things until the truth reveals itself. So to me, he's a magician seer. And I think it's important for us not to discredit or disregard that path. Sometimes the only way that we can find out what's meant to be, like what the truth is, what our true path is by taking that path. And then very soon we'll get feedback on whether it's right or wrong. And Loki is absolutely fine in backtracking. You know, got that wall built, it was fine. I can turn myself into a horse and lure away some other horse and it will be okay. You know, he's fine because he's fine with adapting. He'll adapt in the moment. He'll use his magic in order to do that. But he does use that seer's instinct to say, this is where I believe that I think that there's some dirt here. You know, I'm just going to fling my mud until something comes up from it. I don't believe that he's arbitrary in that sense. So he will work with his seer and his magician in that sense. So we've talked about the mystic. So we've talked about the vulva. We've talked about Balder. We've talked about the sage with Saga and with Mimu. We've talked about the magician a little bit. So I wanted to bring in now the healer. And to me, one of the ways in which the seer and the healer work together can be illustrated through the giantess Mengloth. So Mengloth is a healer. She's said to have this be sort of preside over a healing hill, and that she works with her handmaidens, and they offer healing to people that come. But what's interesting with Mengloth is it is said that not everyone is offered that healing. So she is discerning as to who she will offer healing to and who she won't. So she's not like the NHS. Well, I shouldn't say that, should I? Obviously, there are some limits on that. Let's not go into that at this point. But it's not a fair system. Let's say on the outside, it might seem like, well, how's that decision made? You know, how is that decision made? Is it that, you know, I don't want to think that it's like someone can pay her, or that she just likes some people more than others? You know, how is it that that's done? And one of the things that I did for my program Amplify, where Mengloth is our patroness for the path of the healer, is she shares stories and witnessing journeys as to how she operates. And what she does is she works with the power of the seer, you know, so that the seer will say, before any healing is offered, is this the best path for this person? Is this where they are going to get the best healing? Or is there somewhere else that they need to go in order to access that healing? And so she will only offer that treatment to people who it's right for them to come to this place. The seer is activated in that sense. And I think that she's a really powerful patron for people who are offering healing out into the world, who can get to the point where they can get quite, they can get burnt out. They can become totally drained because they're offering healing everywhere all of the time, unless they have that balance of the seer to say, this is who I'm supposed to work with. And I'm not supposed to work with that person. And I'm okay with that. And I have the faith from my mystic self that they will find the healing but it's not for me to give it. It's a better choice for them to go and find somebody else. So the seer helps with that. So incredibly powerful combination. If you're out there and you're going, yeah, I'm a healer and I'm knackered, raise up your seer. Work to do that. You might work with Mengloth as a patroness. Certainly come and amplify if that's something that feels good for you, if you want to take that deep journey with your healer and develop all the other parts of the magical self. So these partnerships between the seer and the other parts of the magical self become incredibly important. And the other thing that I wanted to mention that with this part is obviously the seer combo, you know. And this to me speaks of, I was talking about Odin only drinking. You know, he has very specific things that he will consume. And it reminds me again of the tale of the Seeress, one of the sort of famous tales of the Seeress from the Norse legends. Is of a woman, and we hear about her outfit and how great she looks. And then it sort of says that she eats like particular meats, and they're considered to be like really powerful, like high quality, you know, those things. And they're provided by the people that she goes to do the rituals for. And I sort of think about that and I go, oh, that's really interesting. And some people sort of say, well, it's because they need to do offerings to her, or maybe it's because it's high protein food and she needs that for her rituals. And I think all of those things could be true. I also think that it's because part of her process, and I said that she was alone in many ways, sort of traveling through. She didn't sort of come with an entourage. She had people who would sing for her, I believe. Was she eats the food that has been raised on the land by the people that she is doing her reading for. So she literally brings into her body a substance that she can read from, because it's been here all of that time. It's been cared for, it's been reared by the people that she's then doing her reading for. So this idea of what we eat and the power of the body for the seer is incredibly important. And again, on Amplify, I go into this in much more depth. The place of power for the seer is the body. This is where we pick up on the signals. If you think about your body being made of somewhere about like 70% water, it's between 60 and 70%, I believe, for human adults. The brain and the heart are made up of more than that. And water is so much the element of seership, and there's so much water out there in the world. There's a sort of ripple effect of water. And so we feel the ripple effect of everything that's happening on the outside, inside with the seer. So unlike the mystic journey's outwards, but the seer is inside. And so we have these ideas of gifting. And I wanted to bring in, we're coming towards the end now, but I wanted to bring in another piece that I hope you will find interesting, at least in terms of thinking about seership and also relationships with deity. There's a story of Sigurd. And Sigurd was a young hero. And it is said that he was advised by Odin to go and slay a particular a dragon. He's advised to go and slay this dragon. He also has a friendship at this point, so it's been not a great friendship, with Regin, who is a brother of Fafnir, who is the dragon that he needs to go and slay. And he trusts Regin, and Regin says, go and do this act as well. So he's getting this information from Odin and from Regin, and he chooses, sort of trusts his seer a little bit there, and he chooses and he goes and he slays the dragon. And now there are different tellings of this legend. So in one of them, he bathes in the blood of the dragon, sort of under the guidance of Odin, perhaps, we're not sure. And he is gifted at that point with the ability to understand the speech of birds. And the birds are a source of great wisdom for him then for the rest of his life. Now, in another telling, he takes the heart of the dragon back to Regin. And Regin's plan is that Regin, is going to eat the heart of the dragon and gain the wisdom of the dragon. But what's happened, and this is very similar to the story of Ceridwen and the poet, whose name escapes me, but where the heart is being cooked, and Sigurd then puts his finger out to test the temperature of the heart, very much like the seer with the body. I'm actually going to use my body to test the temperature here. And he burns himself as he puts his finger on his tongue, and he tastes the blood, or he tastes the heart, essentially the essence of the heart, and he gets it, and he is then able to understand the speech of birds, and he gets that wisdom. So there are two different ways in which he could get that. So you'll notice that at some point he has mentors. He has Odin, presumably a good mentor. Regin, maybe not so much. He has his own little seer's instinct that he follows, and in the tale where he inadvertently tastes the heart, I like to think that his body sort of knew, I need to taste that. I'm just going to burn you there, Sigurd, so that you can taste this. And then after that, he is blessed, and he is blessed by internalizing the power of a creature, a dragon in this case, and then he's given the ability to understand the language of birds. Now, this is where we start to get a little bit mystic. So if you're a mystic, you're going to totally go with me on this journey, and if you're more of a sort of sage, you might be a bit like, oh, I'm not quite sure where this is going. But there is something really intriguing about the relationship that a number of the deities and divinities that I've spoken to you about have with birds. So Odin can shapeshift into an eagle when he wants to. He has his two ravens, Thought and Memory, Hugin and Munin, who will come and they will speak to him, give him information that he needs. Frigg is able to transform herself into a bird, as is Freya. And I think that there is a sort of lost mystery here around the gifts that we can receive over time when we follow our seer's instincts and we work with the mystic and with spirit, and the way in which we can then start to work in a quite a conscious way with these different parts of the self, to sort of be able to say, okay, so now I have my bird self, got my raven, or I can shapeshift, who will then be able to be more powerful as a mystic and travel out, and come back. They'll travel out and they'll come back. And that enhances my abilities to receive wisdom, to gather wisdom. It adds an extra, string to my bow, let's say. So my seer is still here within the body, but my mystic gets to fly out and come back. And then I have greater access, or I'm able to understand the language of spirit guidance more than I did before. So birds might be I don't like to use the word metaphor because I think there's a bit of a cop-out. It's sort of a bit of we'll sort of make it academic and intellectualize it and say that it's a metaphor for something that doesn't actually exist. I'm not going to take us there because I don't think that's right. But it allows us to work with ourselves as spiritual beings, as energetic beings, as well as physical beings, and to recognize that the realms of ourselves are perhaps a little bit limited in the way we think about ourselves as spiritual beings in the world today. So if you think about the idea that we can grow our power as a seer or as a mystic or as a healer, we can grow any of those aspects of our power. And I think it's like a little bit like the phases of the moon, we could sort of grow in that sense. And we can become augmented if we care for ourselves, if we eat the right food, if we work with the gods, if we listen to our bodies. All of those things help us to increase our magical powers, our abilities to receive intuition and knowing and wisdom. So let's go back to Honir and Mimir, who are sitting, giving this advice and this guidance to the Vanir. And when I was doing this work and thinking about this session with you, I really sort of felt this presence of the Vanir for the first time. I often find them quite elusive. I guess with Frey and Njord, no problem. But who are the Vanir? Who are the ones who are making these decisions when they had gone? Because they're off at Asgard, aren't they? Who am I speaking to? And I had a little bit of a conversation with them. And they said, why was Mimir not there? And I said, what do you mean, why was Mimir not there? And then I realized that what they meant was that if you know that your wisdom comes from a partnership between you and your counselor, and your counselor's not there, you look like a bit of a fool. So there's Honir, this amazing, I'm going to say like a seer, who has been designated as a leader. He's been given this like a kingdom within Vanaheim to run, and he's a trusted advisor. But he's only got access to those when Mimir is there. Why is Mimir going off at these vital times? And I was like, I'd never considered that before. I'd always thought about it as being, that somehow Honir was the foolish one, and when Mimir wasn't there, he was like, Mimir was whispering, and then he was just parroting everything. And then I realized, no, that's not what was being, from my perspective and from my understanding of this, is that's not what they were saying at all. They were saying that actually the wisdom was found when the two of them are together. From previous work that I have done with Mimir and a number of different tales that I've channeled over times and witnessing journeys that I've done over time, my understanding is that Mimir was such a being of such extraordinary wisdom, deep earth-connected wisdom. It's a very, very ancient being who then uproots himself, like literally from his home, to go to Asgard to be with Odin. And he is then uprooted again to Vanaheim. My understanding is that the Vanir understood that Mimir was dwindling, that he was coming to the end of his cycle in this like incarnation, whatever you want to call it, that he needed to be returned to the earth. And so their act of beheading is a returning to the earth that allows his knowledge to remain, but his body, his seer's body, you know, the part that senses and feels and wanted to return to the earth, is returned to the earth. Because I say, no, he can't be present. He can't be. You know, maybe he was sick. Maybe he needed to go off very, very frequently. Maybe, you know, it was too much for him. But this is what they were suggesting. They were saying there is no suggestion that Honir wasn't a gifted leader. They don't behead him. And there was no suggestion that Mimir wasn't incredibly gifted. There was simply a recognition that he was done, you know? And so they return the head to Odin so that the knowledge of Mimir is retained. And who knows how Honir then went on and who he discovered to work with as a muse, you might say, to allow him to connect in with his seer's gifts. Perhaps he had to go on his own initiatory journey to slay a dragon, or to go and find sort of mead of inspiration, or, you know, to develop his own method of supporting his seership once Mimir was done and gone. And I think this is important for us to recognize for ourselves as seers, is that we are evolving all of the time, that our methods can evolve all of the time, that something that worked for us one day might not work for us for the next. And so what I'd like to leave you with is some questions for you to feel into. So that one would be, if you think about what type of seer you are, bearing in mind there's different models that I've suggested, is the sort of the seer is connected to the body, you know, fully connected to the body. And you might have, what's the word I'm looking for? You might have tools that you work with that allow you to receive inspiration in different ways to get into that sort of seer state, to activate your seer in that sense. Or you might have particular rituals around what you eat or drink that activate the seer. The seer mystic, you know, requires some form of like dreaming or journey to then work with, to then interpret. So you might say, well, actually, I'm more a mystic, you know, but when does my seer come in? When does my seer decide? Now, bearing in mind that we can't actually do very much with the information that we receive unless the seer is present, because it's the seer who decides. So if you're somebody who, yeah, I'm flooding all of the time with information, it's coming in all of the time, but I don't know what to do with it, then that's the activation of the seer that's required to help you with that. Are you a seer magician? Do you like to sort of go out there into the world and shake things up a little bit and see what's going to happen? And, you know, you follow your instincts as to, you know, what is it that I need to go and shake in order to like find out the next route. So you're very much in the doing. The sort of process of doing is how you find your intuitions, how you find your instincts and your knowings. Are you the healer? We've talked a little bit about the healer and saying how important the seer is for the healer. The healer connects to the outside world. So you could be out and about and go, there's something wrong over there. There's something wrong with this group of people, or with this ecology, or with this person, or whatever it is. But it's the seer that then says, and it's my job, or no, it's not my job to fix it. So are you a seer healer? Are you a sage? So that story, you know, so about poetry and story and sort of learning as a route of moving into seership. So the partnership of the seer sage is one that really, really requires fixing in our world at this moment, because we've very much, they've been divided, haven't they? There's the path of the head and the path of the heart, you know, or the rational and the intellectual, and the intuitive and the instinctive are somehow not seen as being, they should be working together. That's where the wisdom is in them working together. So reclaiming that and saying, yes, I am a person who loves to learn and loves the space of words. but I'm also willing to open up to the intuitions and the instincts that they offer to me. So what type of seer are you? Have a feel into then what guides, what deities, and I've given you quite a few there that you might work with. You might research on them, you might create a little altar to them, you might write about them, find the stories, to invite them into your life as guides. Could also be a route that you want to take to start working with them. I do find it, for me, like doing a little altar, maybe drawing a picture of them. You don't have to show it to anybody else, but it's that act of giving your energy to them and saying, I'm here and I'm interested and I'm willing to learn from you. And then looking for the signs, being open to the signs, and they will come. They might come in unexpected ways, but if you decide, I've been working with Odin for many, many years now, and every time I sort of feel a bit of I haven't spoken to Odin for quite some time. I do apprenticeships, so I go out and work with other deities with his blessing. And then sometimes he'll call me back, and it might just be that someone sends me a picture of a raven, or that sometimes I will get someone saying, "Oh, Odin seems very present with you at the moment." And I'm like, "I'll just say, where is he?" And then, "Oh yeah, it feels like he's right behind you." Oh, no, let's go and pay attention to that then. So look for the signs that they are that they're present, that they want to work with you. And the other piece that I think is important is recognizing that the seer's gifts can develop and they can dwindle. They can develop and they can dwindle. So partially this is around, how do I nourish my gifts? How do I give myself, for the seer in particular, how do I give myself enough sleep? How do I give myself enough eating the right things? Learning that relationship with the body is so important for the seer. Many spiritual people end up being up here because we can be uncomfortable in our bodies, lots and lots of different reasons. But if we want to reclaim those gifts of the seer, we need to be able to be in our bodies. That is where the gifts of the seer live. So what can we do to nourish our seer's gifts and to be comfortable with our own limitations? To say, you know what? I'm so much better when I work collaboratively with somebody else, or when I work with my tools, or when I have quiet around me. And maybe limitations is the wrong way. It's sort of saying, where are you most potent? Where is your wisdom the most potent? I have no doubt that Honir was, could have offered his own thoughts and insights, but without the inspiration of Mimir, he knew that they wouldn't be the best that he could offer. And so he wouldn't offer them when Mimir wasn't there. Odin, he's an intelligent bloke, he could absolutely make great decisions. I have no doubt about it. And yet he goes to visit the Nornir, he goes to see Saga, he goes to see Mimir. So it's that sense of saying, how can I make the most powerful decisions? Who is it that I need to consult with? What oracle might I need to work with? And bringing those into your life and recognizing that they will change over time and that is okay. So I hope that you have enjoyed these inspirations from some of the Northern tradition stories about seership and my interpretations of them based on the 5 parts of the magical self that, as you know, I work with, and a lot of my work is designed to help us to access these at a deeper level. So let me know which deity spoke to you. What have you discovered about your seer self? What has these insights? What are the insights that you have received from this session? I would love to hear from you. And obviously, if you like my work, please like, share, let somebody else know about it so that we can get this beautiful tradition out there in the world more and receive collectively from the wisdom that's available within it.